3 months earlier, the Morrison house in the Pearl District was the kind of place that appeared in Portland Monthly's Homes We Love feature. David Morrison, 36, was the founder of Morrison & Associates, a boutique architectural firm that specialized in sustainable urban design. His buildings weren't just structures, they were statements about how humans could live in harmony with their environment. His wife, Jennifer Morrison, née Patterson, was a grant writer for nonprofit organizations. She had a gift for finding the human story in data, for making donors weep over spreadsheets. Together, they'd built a life that looked from every angle like the Pacific Northwest dream. Farmers market Sundays, Powell's bookstore dates, weekend hikes in the Columbia River Gorge. But for 6 years, their beautiful craftsman home had been silent. No children's laughter, no tiny footsteps on the original hardwood floors. Just the quiet, suffocating weight of negative pregnancy tests and failed IVF cycles. They'd spent $87,000 on fertility treatments at Oregon Reproductive Medicine, 6 rounds of IVF. 6 times Jennifer had endured the hormone injections, the mood swings, the bloating, the hope, and then the devastating crash when her period came anyway. 6 times David had held her while she sobbed into his chest, her body shaking with grief for children who never existed. The 7th time, it worked. Jennifer was now 37 weeks pregnant. The nursery was painted a soft sage green. David had mixed the color himself, matching it to the moss they'd seen on their last hike in Forest Park. Jennifer had spent the past month knitting tiny booties, her hands moving with meditative precision as she created something, finally, for their miracle. On a cool October Sunday, with rain pattering against the windows in that gentle Oregon way, Jennifer stood in the nursery, arranging those hand-knitted booties on a shelf. She was humming an old Fleetwood Mac song, Landslide, and David watched her from the doorway, a knot of something dark and cancerous growing in his stomach. He loved her. God, he loved her so much it hurt. He loved the way she sang off-key in the shower. He loved how she cried at dog adoption commercials. He loved how she'd never given up, even when her own body seemed to be betraying her. But he was also a coward, and cowards don't face their problems. They run. "Jen," he said, his voice tight, "I have to go to the office. The Henderson project. The city council presentation is tomorrow and the renderings aren't right." Jennifer turned, her smile dimming only slightly. "David, again? That's the 4th time this week." I know, baby. But this project, it's going to put us on the map. Once this is done, I'm all yours, I promise. I'm all yours and Oliver's." They'd decided on Oliver. Oliver James Morrison. A strong name. A good name. David crossed the room and kissed her forehead, placing both hands on the tight drum of her belly. The baby kicked, a strong, insistent thump against his palm. "Sorry, buddy," David whispered to the baby. "Daddy's got to work." Jennifer covered his hands with hers. "Just be safe, okay? I love you." "I love you too." The lie tasted like battery acid in his mouth. David didn't drive to his office in the Pearl District. He drove across the river to a new glass tower in the south waterfront, a building he'd actually designed. He took the elevator to the 22nd floor and used his key to open apartment 2207. Amber Chen was waiting. She didn't wait for him to close the door. She pulled him inside by his collar, her mouth finding his, her body pressing against him with an urgency that felt more like aggression than passion. Amber was 29, a junior architect at his firm. She was everything Jennifer wasn't, sharp where Jennifer was soft, calculated where Jennifer was genuine, ambitious where Jennifer was content. She looked at David and saw not a man, but a ladder to climb. "You're late," Amber murmured against his lips. She was doing the nursery," David said, guilt flooding back. Amber's eyes hardened. She pushed away, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Willamette River. "The nursery. How precious. Did you tell her yet? That you're not staying?" "Amber, we talked about this. The baby's coming. I can't just..." "Can't just what?" She whirled on him, her voice sharp. "Can't just leave your pregnant wife? Or can't just admit that you've been living a lie for 8 months?" David's affair with Amber had started innocently enough, or so he told himself. Late nights at the office, working on the Henderson project. She'd brought him coffee. They'd talked about design philosophy, about ambition, about wanting more than Portland could offer. One night, he'd kissed her, or she'd kissed him. In retrospect, he couldn't remember who'd made the first move. It didn't matter. He'd been drowning in the sterile, scheduled world of IVF, sex by calendar, romance by hormone injection, and Amber had been a life raft. Or so he thought. "She has the baby," Amber said, pouring herself a glass of wine. "That's all she has, David. I have you, your mind, your ambition, your future. She's your past, a sweet, boring past that's holding you back from everything you could be." It's not that simple. It is that simple. Amber walked back to him, her eyes glittering. "You choose. Her and that screaming kid in Portland, or me and a partnership in San Francisco, Morrison and Chen, we could be legendary." David knew she was right. He'd been living two lives, and you can't sustain that forever. Eventually, one life burns down the other. "Not tonight," he said, reaching for her. "Let's not talk about her tonight." Amber smiled, that predatory, sharp smile that should have warned him. "Fine, let's not talk at all." As he lost himself in her, he forced the image of the sage-green nursery from his mind. He forced himself not to think about Jennifer's hands on her belly, about the tiny booties, about the name they'd chosen together. He was a man living two lives, and he had no idea that in less than 3 weeks both lives would end in blood and screaming and the cold, cosmic laughter of consequences. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in compartmentalization. David moved through his perfect home like an actor in a play, hitting his marks, delivering his lines. He rubbed Jennifer's swollen feet. He assembled the crib, cursing the deliberately confusing IKEA instructions while she laughed at him. He made her decaf lattes with oat milk, exactly how she liked them, and every word was true, which made every word a lie. To Amber, he was the man on the edge of freedom. He was building a fantasy with her, a penthouse in San Francisco's Soma district, international projects, a life unencumbered by domestic mediocrity. He was two different men, and the strain was cracking him apart. Jennifer, despite her focus on the baby, wasn't blind. She'd built a career on reading between the lines, on finding the story people didn't want to tell. And she saw the changes in David, small things, tiny cracks in the facade, the way he now showered immediately when he came home, instead of collapsing on the couch with her to watch The Great British Bake Off. The scent on his jacket, not his usual cedarwood cologne, but something sharp and floral. Chanel No. 5. His phone, which he now kept face down, which buzzed at 2 a.m. with messages he'd slip into the bathroom to read. The final thread came loose on a Wednesday afternoon. Jennifer was looking for stamps in David's home office. She was mailing thank you notes to people who'd sent baby gifts. She opened his desk drawer and saw the American Express bill. David had always been meticulous about paperwork, but this one he'd left out, an oversight born of arrogance. Her eyes scanned down the charges. Kennard, $340. Tuesday, October 3rd, the Tuesday he'd said he was eating pizza with his rendering team. Jennifer's blood went cold. Her hands started shaking. She sat down in David's leather desk chair, the one he'd inherited from his father, and stared at the bill. She didn't cry. The shock was too profound for tears. She simply sat there, the paper trembling in her hands, and waited. David came home at 7 p.m., all smiles, holding a bouquet of white peonies, her favorites. "For my two favorite people," he said, leaning in to kiss her. Jennifer turned her head. He kissed air. "What's wrong?" His smile faltered. She held up the bill. "How was the duck confit?" David's face went white. The color drained so fast it was almost comical. The peonies drooped in his hand, suddenly looking wilted and pathetic. "Jen, I can explain. Can you?" Her voice was quiet, but it carried a weight that made him step back. "Can you explain the perfume that isn't mine? Can you explain the 2 a.m. texts? Can you explain how you could do this to me, to us, now?" She gestured to her enormous belly, her hand shaking with rage and grief. It happened," David stammered. The peonies fell from his hand, scattering across the hardwood. "There's this woman at work, Amber Chen. It doesn't mean anything, Jen. It's just, It's been so hard. The IVF, the pressure, everything. Don't. Jennifer's voice was a whip crack. Don't you dare use our son as an excuse for this. You think it's been hard for you? I'm the one who's been injecting hormones into my stomach for 6 years. I'm the one who's carrying this baby. I'm the one who's put my body through hell. And you went and found someone new? Tears were streaming down her face now, hot and angry. Who is she? It doesn't matter. It's over. I'll end it tonight. I'll fire her. Jennifer, please look at me. I love you. This baby is my entire world. Jennifer stared at him. She was doing math in her head, calculating 7 years of love against 1 night of definitive proof, weighing her future as a single mother against the father her son deserved. I don't believe you, she said finally, her voice flat and dead. I don't believe it's over. But here's what's going to happen. You are going to stop seeing her. You are going to delete her number. You are going to end this, and you are going to be here, fully here, for the birth of your son. She stood, her belly between them like a physical barrier. We are not going to talk about this again until Oliver is home and safe. I will not bring this child into a broken home. Do you understand me, David? It was more mercy than he deserved. It was a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. Yes, he said, sinking to his knees. He pressed his face to her stomach, his tears soaking through her shirt. Yes, Jennifer, anything. It's over. I swear to God it's over. But as he held his weeping wife, his phone vibrated in his pocket. A text from Amber. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Wear the blue shirt I like. David Morrison, the brilliant architect, the coward, the liar, did what he knew how to do. He silenced the phone and held his wife tighter, burying the lie between them like a body in concrete. He didn't end it. He just got better at hiding it. He told Amber that Jennifer was suspicious, that he needed to be careful for a few weeks. Amber, in her narcissistic confidence, was fine with this. It made their meetings more thrilling, more illicit. She knew she had him. It was just a matter of time. Jennifer, meanwhile, retreated into herself. She stopped asking where David was. She simply watched the clock, her eyes hollow, and prayed that her family, which hadn't even officially begun, could survive its first mortal wound. The week of Jennifer's due date, a heavy October fog rolled into Portland. The city disappeared into gray mist. You couldn't see more than 50 feet in any direction. It was the perfect weather for ghosts. On a Tuesday, Jennifer had her 39-week checkup. David had a critical meeting with a potential investor from California. It's okay, Jennifer said, tying her shoes, a monumental task with her belly. My sister Rachel's taking me. Rachel Patterson was everything David wasn't, loyal, present, real. She'd never liked David, finding his charm too practiced, his ambition too sharp. She arrived in her sensible Honda, took one look at her sister, and her jaw tightened. He's not coming? He has a meeting. Right, a meeting. Rachel's voice was acid. At the clinic, Dr. Susan Martinez, Jennifer's OB/GYN who'd guided them through every failed IVF and finally this successful pregnancy, entered the exam room with a face like a storm cloud. Jennifer, Rachel, let's check your blood pressure. The cuff hissed. Dr. Martinez looked at the reading. She took it again, her mouth pressed into a thin line. Jennifer, your blood pressure is 190/115. That's dangerously high. I'm also seeing significant protein in your urine. This is severe preeclampsia. We need to get you to Mercy General now. We're inducing labor today. Jennifer's world tilted. Today? But David, he's in a meeting. Call him, Dr. Martinez said, already typing into her tablet. I'm admitting you immediately. This is serious, Jennifer. Your life is in danger. Rachel was already on the phone, her face pale. David, it's Rachel. Jennifer's in trouble. Preeclampsia. They're inducing her at Mercy General. Get there now. David was not in a meeting with an investor from California. He was at the Heathman Hotel Bar, a dark, intimate space with leather booths and dim lighting. His leg was pressed against Amber's under the table. They were drinking champagne, celebrating a hypothetical future where he was free. His phone buzzed. Rachel Patterson. He grimaced and silenced it. Who's that? Amber asked, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. No one, just work. The phone buzzed again. Rachel Patterson. He silenced it again. "You're a terrible liar, David," Amber purred. "It's her, isn't it? Or her watchdog sister?" Before he could respond, the phone buzzed a third time. This time it was Jennifer. His heart seized. Jennifer never called when she was with Rachel. He picked up. "Jen, is everything—" "David!" It was Rachel's voice, sharp with terror. "Get to Mercy General, now! She can't— She says her vision is blurry. Something's wrong. God, David, just get here." The line went dead. David's blood turned to ice. Blurry vision, high blood pressure. He'd read the pamphlets. He knew what this was. This was preeclampsia. Possibly eclampsia. This was life-threatening. "I have to go," he said, throwing a $100 bill on the table. What?" Amber's face twisted. "You're kidding. She's faking it, David. It's a ploy to drag you back." "She's not faking," David snapped, his voice raw. "She's at the hospital. It's the baby. It's happening." He ran from the bar, leaving Amber sitting alone with her champagne. Amber sat there for a full minute, the champagne turning to vinegar in her mouth. He'd left her. When it actually mattered, when real life intervened, he'd run back to his wife. He'd chosen her. A cold, narcissistic fury settled over Amber like a cloak. She was not a woman to be abandoned. She was not the other woman. She was the main woman, and she was going to prove it. She pulled out her phone and ordered an Uber. "Mercy General Hospital," she told the driver, her voice perfectly calm. "Emergency entrance, and please hurry. It's urgent." She was going to the hospital. She was going to find David. She was going to force the choice right there, right then. She would not be hidden. She would not be ignored. The storm that had been gathering for months was about to break, and Amber Chen intended to be the lightning strike that burned everything to the ground. The maternity ward at Mercy General was controlled chaos. When Rachel's Honda screeched into the emergency bay, Jennifer was barely conscious, her skin sallow, her breathing shallow. A trauma team was waiting. They rushed her inside, alarms already beeping, voices sharp with medical urgency. Dr. Martinez was there, scrubbed and focused. "She's in severe preeclampsia, possibly progressing to eclampsia. Get me a magnesium sulfate drip now. Prep OR3 for an emergency C-section. Her liver enzymes are elevated. This could be HELP syndrome. HELP syndrome. Hemolysis, elevated liver enzymes, low platelet count. A death sentence wrapped in an acronym." David burst through the automatic doors 15 minutes later, his shirt untucked, his hair wild. He found the maternity floor and saw Rachel standing outside L&D room 7, her face the color of concrete. "Where is she? Is she okay?" "They took her to surgery," Rachel whispered, and for the first time in her life, David saw terror in her eyes. "David, her liver. They're saying her liver is failing. They're saying—" Her voice broke. "They're trying to save them both." A nurse, Michelle Rodriguez, a kind woman with tired eyes, stepped out. "Mr. Morrison, your wife is asking for you." David pushed past Rachel into the room. It was a nightmare. Machines screamed. Jennifer was unrecognizable, swollen, pale, her eyes rolling with terror. "David," she cried, grabbing his hand with shocking strength. I can't feel my hands. I'm so scared. The baby, just save our baby. Promise me, save Oliver." "I promise," David sobbed, kissing her clammy forehead. "We're all going to be okay. I love you so much. I'm so sorry. Mr. Morrison, we need to move." Dr. Martinez's voice cut through the chaos. "We're taking her now." They wheeled Jennifer out, her hand slipping from David's. He stumbled back into the hallway, his legs giving out. He collapsed onto a plastic waiting room chair, his head in his hands. He'd destroyed everything. His lies, his betrayal, the stress he'd caused. It had all led to this moment. He'd killed her. He'd killed them both. "Mr. Morrison." He looked up. His blood turned to liquid nitrogen. Amber Chen was standing in front of him. She was wearing a black silk blouse and leather pants, looking completely out of place, like a raven in a dove sanctuary. "Amber," he whispered, horrified. What are you doing here? You can't be here." "Can I?" She smiled, a cold, thin smile. "You left me in that bar, David. You ran away like I was nothing. I'm not nothing. I'm your future." She gestured contemptuously toward the OR doors. "She's your past, and frankly, from the sound of it, not much of a future for her either. "Get out," David hissed, jumping to his feet. He grabbed her arm, trying to pull her toward the elevators. "This is a hospital. My wife is dying. You need to leave now." "Your wife is dying?" Amber's voice rose, echoing through the hallway. Nurse Rodriguez's head snapped up at the station. "Well, you know what, David? Maybe that's for the best." "What did you just say?" "You heard me." Amber's eyes glittered with malice. "She's weak. She's been holding you back for years. You've been suffocating in that little domestic prison. Now you can finally be free. Free to be with me." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. "Free to be with me and our baby." The world stopped spinning. "What?" "I'm pregnant, David." Amber smiled, a genuine smile for the first time. 12 weeks. I was going to tell you today, over champagne. Congratulations, Daddy. Looks like you're going to be a father after all." David couldn't breathe. Pregnant. Amber was pregnant. His wife was in an operating room, fighting for her life and their son's life, and his mistress was here, telling him she was also carrying his child. It wasn't possible. It was a nightmare, a hell of his own making. "Amber, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," she said, louder now, her voice carrying. "I understand that I'm having your baby. I understand that woman in there is just an obstacle. And obstacles, David, can be removed." "You're a monster," David breathed, recoiling from her. "I'm a survivor," Amber corrected, "and I'm not leaving. I'm going to wait right here." She gestured to the waiting room chairs. "For the good news." Before David could respond, before he could physically throw her out of the hospital, the OR doors swung open. Nurse Rodriguez was walking quickly toward Dr. Martinez, who was at the scrub sink. David couldn't hear the words, but he saw Rodriguez's face, saw her gesture toward Amber. Dr. Martinez stopped scrubbing. She slowly turned, her eyes over the top of her surgical mask hardening into chips of ice. She'd just seen Jennifer's platelet count drop below 50,000. She knew what was happening. She'd seen this kind of tragedy before. But the cruelty happening in her waiting room was a new, horrifying variable. Dr. Martinez's voice was low, but carried across the hall. "Keep that woman away from my patient's husband. If she makes one more scene, call security." Time became meaningless. David sat on one side of the waiting room, his body vibrating with guilt and terror. Amber, defiant, had taken a seat across from him, casually scrolling through her phone as if she were waiting for a table at a restaurant. Rachel had gone to the hospital chapel, unable to bear being in the same room as Amber. David prayed. He prayed to a God he hadn't spoken to since his father's funeral 10 years ago. He prayed for Jennifer. He prayed for Oliver. He prayed for the clock to rewind, for a chance to undo everything, for mercy he didn't deserve. 1 hour passed, then 2. The atmosphere on the floor shifted. Nurses moved with grim urgency. David heard a code blue called over the intercom. "Code blue, OR3. Code blue, OR3. Jennifer's room. He shot to his feet. A nurse gently pushed him back down. "Sir, please, let them work." He watched, helpless, as a crash cart slammed through the doors. He heard shouted commands from inside. He heard machines beeping, then a long, terrible, single continuous tone, a flat line. Amber looked up from her phone, a flicker of interest crossing her face. She saw David's white-knuckled grip on the chair arms. She saw the panic. She saw the tears streaming down his face, and then the doors opened. Dr. Martinez walked out. She was no longer a surgeon. She was a messenger of death. She'd stripped off her bloody gloves. Her scrub cap was off. Her short gray hair was matted with sweat. Her face was carved with grief. She walked directly to David. He already knew. He was already shaking his head, his whole body convulsing with the word no. "Mr. Morrison, David." Dr. Martinez's voice was quiet, exhausted. "We did everything we could. Jennifer's HELP syndrome was catastrophic. Her liver failed. She developed DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulation. She was bleeding from everywhere. We couldn't stop it." She took a breath that seemed to physically pain her. "We gave her 40 units of blood. We tried every intervention, but she threw a massive pulmonary embolism. David, I'm so sorry. We lost her. Jennifer is gone." David Morrison shattered. A sound came out of him that wasn't human, a raw, animal howl of pure agony. He collapsed, his body folding in on itself, his hands clawing at his face as if he could physically tear the grief out of his skull. He had killed her. His lies, his stress, his betrayal. He had killed the woman he loved. And from across the waiting room came another sound. A laugh. It was quiet, sharp, utterly unmistakable. A single triumphant bark of laughter. David's head snapped up. Amber was standing, one hand covering her mouth, but her eyes were dancing with victory. She'd won. The wife was dead. The obstacle was gone. David was grieving, yes, but he'd get over it. He was hers now, all of him, and his money, and his firm, and his future. She walked over, her heels clicking on the linoleum, her face arranged into a mask of false sympathy. "Oh, David," she murmured, reaching for him. "I'm so terribly sorry for your loss. What a tragedy. But don't worry, you're not alone. You have me. You have our baby. We can—" Dr. Martinez's eyes, which had been fixed on David, slowly swiveled to Amber. Recognition flashed across her face. This was the woman from the hallway. The woman who'd said Jennifer was an obstacle. The woman who'd laughed. The doctor's gaze was so cold, so filled with contempt, it could have frozen the sun. Amber's smirk faltered. "Mr. Morrison," Dr. Martinez said, her voice suddenly sharp, deliberately cutting through Amber's performance. She did not take her eyes off the mistress. "Mr. Morrison, we couldn't save Jennifer." She paused, and in that pause the universe held its breath. "But we saved the babies." David's head, buried in his hands, came up slowly. "What? Babies? No, it's a boy. Oliver. We're having a boy." Dr. Martinez finally turned her gaze back to David, and for the first time, the smallest flicker of warmth entered her eyes. It was a surprise. One baby was positioned directly behind the other on every single ultrasound. It's rare, very rare, but it happens. We didn't know until we got in there. She knelt down, putting a hand on David's shoulder. "You have a son. David, he's tiny, only 4 pounds, but he's fighting. And you have a daughter. 3 pounds, 8 ounces, it's twins." The 4 words hung in the air like a sword. It's twins. Amber's face, which had been alight with triumph, went utterly, horribly pale. The smirk vanished, replaced by a mask of chalk-white horror. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Twins. Not one inconvenient, easily managed child. 2. 2 babies. 2 permanent, unbreakable living links to the sainted dead wife. 2 heirs. 2 tiny, screaming, expensive reminders of Jennifer forever. Her own pregnancy, her trump card, her checkmate, was suddenly a liability. She wasn't the exciting new life. She was just the 3rd baby, the complication, the scandal. David was no longer a grieving widower she could comfort and claim. He was a single father of premature twins. Her victory, so sweet just seconds before, had turned to ashes in her mouth. She backed away, stumbling, her Louboutins catching on the linoleum. Her eyes were wide with panic. She'd laughed at a dead woman, and now the universe was laughing back. I have to go," Amber whispered, her voice strangled. "I just remembered, I have to—" She turned and ran, her heels clicking frantically as she fled toward the elevators. She jabbed the button repeatedly, glancing back once to see Dr. Martinez still watching her with that cold, knowing stare. The elevator doors opened. Amber disappeared inside. She would never return to Mercy General. She would, in fact, never return to Portland. Dr. Martinez turned back to David. "Would you like to see them? Your son and daughter?" David nodded, unable to speak, tears streaming down his face. Dr. Martinez helped him to his feet and led him through the doors, past the OR where his wife's body still lay, and into the NICU. The neonatal intensive care unit was a forest of machines and incubators. Tiny babies, some no bigger than David's hand, fought for life in their plastic wombs. Dr. Martinez led him to 2 isolettes side by side. Inside were the smallest humans David had ever seen. They were covered in wires and tubes, their skin nearly translucent, their eyes sealed shut. "This is your son," Dr. Martinez said softly, gesturing to the isolette on the left. 4 pounds, 2 ounces, and this is your daughter, 3 pounds, 9 ounces. David pressed his hands to the plastic, staring at these impossible, miraculous, terrifying creatures. They had Jennifer's delicate eyelids. They had her fine, dark hair. Can I touch them? You can put your hands through the ports. David slipped his hands through the openings. He placed one finger in his son's tiny palm. The baby's fingers, no thicker than matchsticks, closed around it. His daughter shifted, her mouth opening in a silent cry. "Hello," David whispered, his voice breaking. "Hello, Oliver. Hello, little girl. I'm your dad. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Your mom, she was the best person I've ever known, and I didn't deserve her, but I promise you, I promise both of you, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be the father you deserve." Nurse Rodriguez appeared beside Dr. Martinez, holding a clipboard. "Doctor, we need names for the birth certificates. We have Oliver James Morrison for the boy. What about the girl?" David looked at his daughter. This tiny fighter. This unexpected gift. This miracle born from tragedy. "Jennifer," he whispered. "Her name is Jennifer. Jennifer Grace Morrison." The next 2 weeks were the longest of David's life. Oliver and Jennifer remained in the NICU, growing slowly, ounce by precious ounce. They were on feeding tubes and oxygen. They had jaundice. They had apnea episodes where they simply forgot to breathe and alarms would shriek. David lived at the hospital. He'd go home only to shower and grab clean clothes. Rachel brought him food. His business partner Marcus Webb handled the firm. The Henderson project was postponed. David sat by the isolettes, his hands through the ports, talking to his children. He told them about their mother. He told them about the first time he'd met Jennifer at a gallery opening, where she'd caught him staring at a painting and said, "If you're trying to figure out what it means, you're missing the point." He told them about her laugh, about her kindness, about her strength. He didn't tell them about Amber. He would never tell them about Amber. On the 15th day, the hospital social worker, Linda Chen, no relation to Amber thankfully, came to his bedside vigil. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Mr. Morrison, we need to talk about logistics. When the twins are ready for discharge, probably another 2 weeks, you're going to need help. Do you have family? Support?" "My sister lives in Seattle. Rachel, Jennifer's sister, she's been here every day." "That's good. You're going to need them." Linda paused. "I also need to ask, is there anyone else who should be contacted? The baby's mother is listed as deceased, but I apologize for asking. Is there anyone else involved? A partner? Someone with a claim?" David's blood went cold. Amber. She was still pregnant. She would come back. She would claim parental rights to her child. She would insert herself into his life forever. "No," David lied. "There's no one else." But he knew that wasn't true. The bomb he'd created was still ticking. On day 21, Amber Chen walked back into his life. She didn't come to the hospital. She came to his house. David had gone home to pack more clothes. He walked through the door and found her sitting in his living room. She'd used the key he'd given her months ago, a key he'd forgotten to take back. "Amber," his voice was dead. "Get out. We need to talk, David." She looked different. The sharp predator was gone. In her place was something softer, more calculated. She was wearing a cream-colored dress that showed her now visible baby bump. She looked like a pregnant Madonna. "There's nothing to talk about." "There's everything to talk about." She stood, her hand resting on her belly. "David, I know I handled things badly at the hospital. I was in shock. I was scared. I said terrible things, but I've had time to think, to reflect." She walked toward him, her eyes wide and seemingly sincere. "What happened to Jennifer was a tragedy. Those babies, your babies, they need a mother. And this baby," she touched her stomach, "needs a father. David, we can do this together. We can be a family, all of us. I can help you raise the twins. I can be there for them, for you. We can turn this tragedy into something beautiful." David stared at her. She was a sociopath, a complete, genuine sociopath. She'd laughed at his wife's death, and now she was proposing to replace her. "You laughed, Amber. When the doctor told me Jennifer was dead, you laughed. I was hysterical. You were victorious." David's voice was ice. "You stood there and celebrated my wife's death. You called her an obstacle. You said she could be removed. I heard you. The nurses heard you. Dr. Martinez heard you. Amber's mask cracked slightly. David, you're twisting things. Get out of my house. Get out of my life. And if that baby is mine, which I seriously doubt, I'll pay child support. But you will never, ever be part of my children's lives. You will never speak to them. You will never meet them. Do you understand me? Amber's face hardened. The false warmth vanished, replaced by cold calculation. You'll pay child support. That's generous, but here's what's actually going to happen, David. You're going to accept me back into your life. You're going to introduce me to your children as their new mother, and you're going to marry me. Are you insane? I'm pragmatic. She pulled out her phone, swiping through photos. See, while you were playing grieving widower, I did some research. Oregon is a community property state. Everything you acquired during your marriage to Jennifer, half of that is hers, or was hers, and now it goes to her heirs, those twins. She smiled. But if you and I get married and I become their legal stepmother, I can petition for control of that estate, your firm, your house, your accounts. I can manage it all for the children. And my child, your child, will be their sibling. We'd all be one big, happy family. David felt sick. You've been planning this. I've been adapting. That's what survivors do. She walked toward the door, then turned back. You have 1 week to think about it. Then I'm filing a paternity claim, and I'm going to court to demand my rights as the mother of your child. This can be easy, or it can be very, very public, your choice. She left, closing the door softly behind her. David stood in his empty house surrounded by Jennifer's things, her books, her coffee mug on the counter, the half-finished baby blanket she'd been knitting, and felt a rage so pure and cold it almost stopped his heart. He pulled out his phone and called Marcus Webb. Marcus, I need a lawyer, not a contracts lawyer, a killer. I need someone who destroys people for a living. Marcus gave him a name, Victoria Reeves. She was a family law attorney with a reputation that preceded her like a storm warning. She'd taken down abusive spouses, corrupt business partners, and one memorably disastrous child custody case involving a tech billionaire and his 3 mistresses. David met her the next day in her office in downtown Portland. Victoria was in her 50s, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that could perform surgery. Mr. Morrison, I've read the brief Marcus sent me. You're in an interesting position. Interesting? You're a widower with premature twins and a pregnant mistress who's attempting to extort you. It's not boring, she leaned back. Here's the situation. She can file for paternity, and if the baby is yours, she has certain rights. But those rights don't include blackmailing you into marriage or giving her control over your estate. She said she'd make it public. Victoria smiled, a shark smile. Let her. Public sympathy will be entirely with you. Grieving widower, newborn twins fighting for life, opportunistic mistress. The optics are not in her favor. But we can do better than just defense. We can go on offense. How? First, we get ahead of the story. You file for an immediate paternity test the moment that baby is born. Court-ordered, legally binding. Second, we investigate her. People who are willing to blackmail don't usually limit their crimes to one victim. We find out who Amber Chen really is. We find her other secrets. David nodded slowly. Do it, whatever it costs. It'll cost a lot. Retainer alone is $50,000. I don't care. Destroy her. Victoria Reeves made a note on her legal pad. Consider it done. Victoria hired the best private investigator in the Pacific Northwest, a former FBI agent named Thomas Brennan. He was methodical, ruthless, and had a gift for finding things people wanted hidden. It took him 11 days. David was at the hospital sitting between Oliver's and Jennifer's isolettes when his phone rang. Victoria. We found something. Come to my office. Now. An hour later, David sat across from Victoria and Thomas. Between them was a file folder that looked deceptively thin. Mr. Morrison, Thomas began, Amber Chen is not who she says she is. Her real name is Amber Zhao. She's 31, not 29. She changed her name 5 years ago after a restraining order was filed against her by a former employer in San Francisco, a man named Gregory Chen, no relation. She'd worked as his assistant and conducted an affair with him while he was married. When he tried to end it, she threatened his wife, his children, and attempted to blackmail him. David's blood ran cold, Thomas continued. Gregory paid her $200,000 to go away and sign an NDA. She used that money to reinvent herself. New name, new city, clean slate. She moved to Portland and got hired at your firm. She targeted me. She targeted several men at your firm, Thomas said, sliding photos across the desk. Your business partner, Marcus Webb, senior architect Ryan Foster. You weren't her only option. You were just the one who bit. The photos showed Amber having dinner with Marcus. Leaving Ryan's apartment building at 2 a.m., she'd been running multiple cons simultaneously. And the pregnancy? David asked, his voice hollow. Victoria pulled out another document. We pulled security footage from your building and cross-referenced her timeline. Mr. Morrison, during the window when she claims she conceived your child, she was also sleeping with Ryan Foster. We have hotel receipts. We have text messages. Ryan's phone was subpoenaed as part of a separate lawsuit, and these came up in discovery. She slid David an iPhone screenshot. Amber to Ryan. Can't wait for tomorrow night. Wear the cologne I bought you. The timestamp. The same week she'd claimed to have gotten pregnant with David's baby. She doesn't know who the father is, David whispered. Correct, Victoria said. And here's where it gets interesting. Ryan Foster is married. His wife, Catherine, is a partner at a major law firm. If Amber tries to claim Ryan is the father, Catherine will annihilate her, so Amber needs the father to be you, the grieving widower, the man with money, the man with no wife to complicate things. Thomas added, We also found this. He slid across a bank statement. 2 weeks before Jennifer's death, Amber made a $15,000 wire transfer to a clinic in Nevada. We contacted them. They specialize in concierge pregnancy services, including artificial insemination. She could have used donor sperm. This pregnancy might not be yours or Ryan's. It might not be anyone's, you know. David felt like he was floating. So what do we do? Victoria leaned forward. We wait. We let her file her paternity claim. We let her make her threats. And then, in court, we produce all of this. We show the judge who she really is. We demand an immediate paternity test. And when the test shows you're not the father, we file criminal charges for attempted extortion. And if I am the father? Then you pay child support, and you petition for full custody on the grounds that she's a demonstrable threat. Either way, she loses. David looked at the file. She laughed when my wife died. Victoria's eyes softened, just slightly. I know. And she's going to pay for that. I promise you. Amber made her move 3 weeks later. The twins were finally out of the NICU, home in the nursery Jennifer had prepared. David had hired a night nurse and a nanny. Rachel visited every day. Life was chaos, but it was a purposeful chaos. A process server arrived at David's door one morning. Amber was suing for paternity, child support, and, incredibly, joint custody of the twins, claiming they needed a mother's presence. Victoria called him immediately. It's even worse than we thought. Read page 7. David flipped through the legal filing. On page 7, Amber claimed that Jennifer's death was caused by David's emotional abuse and abandonment, and that David was an unfit parent who'd driven his wife to a fatal health crisis. She was blaming him, and she wasn't wrong. David felt the guilt crash over him again. She was saying out loud what he'd been thinking every day, that he'd killed Jennifer. David, listen to me, Victoria's voice was sharp. This is a manipulation tactic. Yes, stress can contribute to preeclampsia, but Jennifer's HELP syndrome was a biological catastrophe. It wasn't caused by an argument. It was caused by pregnancy itself. Do not let her weaponize your guilt. But I did. You had an affair. That makes you a bad husband. It doesn't make you a murderer. And it certainly doesn't give her the right to claim your children. The court date was set for 6 weeks later. Multnomah County Circuit Court was a gray, imposing building in downtown Portland. Courtroom 4C was oak-paneled and solemn. Judge Patricia Okafor presided, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with a reputation for seeing through bullshit. Amber arrived with her attorney. a slick personal injury lawyer named Derek Mann, who was way out of his depth in family court. David sat next to Victoria, his hands clenched on the table. "The petitioner may present their case," Judge Okafor said. Derek Mann stood. "Your Honor, my client, Amber Chen, is 14 weeks pregnant with Mr. Morrison's child. Mr. Morrison has refused to acknowledge paternity, has threatened my client, and has attempted to exclude her from his life and the lives of his other children, twins who desperately need a maternal figure." He painted Amber as a victim, a woman in love, abandoned, and threatened by a powerful man. "Furthermore, Your Honor, Mr. Morrison's behavior directly contributed to the death of his wife, Jennifer Morrison. His emotional abuse and infidelity created stress that exacerbated her preeclampsia. My client believes the twins are at risk in his care." Judge Okafor's eyebrows rose. She looked at Victoria. "Counselor?" Victoria Reeves stood. She was a pillar of controlled fury. "Your Honor, the petitioner's claims are not just baseless, they're defamatory and cruel. Let's address them in order. First, paternity. My client is willing, eager in fact, to submit to a paternity test. We request an immediate court-ordered DNA test the moment Ms. Chen's child is born." She paused. "But I should note that Ms. Chen has been, shall we say, romantically indiscriminate. During the relevant time frame, she was also involved with at least 2 other men." Victoria slid documents across to the judge. "Hotel receipts, text messages, security footage." Amber's face went white. Derek Mann looked like he'd been punched. Victoria continued, her voice cold and clinical. "Second, the claim that my client is an unfit parent. Mr. Morrison is a devoted father who has been at his children's bedside every single day since their birth. His twins are thriving under his care, with support from family and qualified professionals." She pulled out more documents. "Third, the accusation regarding Mrs. Morrison's death. I have here a letter from Dr. Patricia Hayes, the attending surgeon, and Dr. Susan Martinez, Mrs. Morrison's OB-GYN. Both state unequivocally that Jennifer Morrison's HELP syndrome was a biological condition, not caused by external stress." Victoria's voice sharpened. "But let's talk about what did happen at that hospital, Your Honor. Ms. Chen showed up uninvited to the maternity ward while Mrs. Morrison was dying. She confronted Mr. Morrison in the waiting room, and when the doctor announced that Mrs. Morrison had died, Ms. Chen laughed." Courtroom went silent. "She laughed, Your Honor. Multiple witnesses heard it. Nurses, the doctor. She stood there and celebrated the death of a woman who'd just given birth to premature twins." Judge Okafor's face hardened. She looked at Amber. "Is this true, Miss Chen?" Amber stammered. I was in shock. I didn't mean, did you laugh? It was hysterical. I wasn't, yes or no?" Amber's face crumpled. "Yes, but there is no but after that particular yes, Miss Chen." Judge Okafor's voice could have cut glass. Victoria wasn't done. "Finally, Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence that Ms. Chen, who claims to be a victim here, has a history of predatory behavior." She handed over Thomas Brennan's file. "A restraining order from a previous employer, a settlement for blackmail, and a wire transfer to a fertility clinic that suggests this pregnancy may have been artificially orchestrated for financial gain." Derek Mann shot to his feet. "Objection. This is character assassination." "It's relevant to her claim of custody and her credibility," Victoria shot back. Judge Okafor held up a hand. "I'll allow it. Mr. Mann, control your client or I'll hold her in contempt." Amber was crying now, real tears, ugly tears, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage at being caught. Judge Okafor read through the documents in silence. The courtroom was a held breath. Finally, she looked up. "Ms. Chen, I'm going to be very clear with you. Your behavior at Mercy General Hospital was reprehensible. Laughing at the death of a new mother is not hysteria, it's cruelty. The fact that you then attempted to insert yourself into Mr. Morrison's life, to claim his children, and to extort him into a relationship tells me everything I need to know about your character." Amber opened her mouth. Judge Okafor cut her off. "I'm not finished. You will submit to a court-ordered paternity test when your child is born. If Mr. Morrison is the father, he will pay child support as required by law. But you will have no custody rights to his twins, none. You will not contact them. You will not come near them. I am issuing a restraining order effective immediately." She signed the order and slid it across the bench. "Furthermore, if the paternity test shows Mr. Morrison is not the father, you will reimburse him for all legal fees associated with this fraudulent claim. Do you understand?" Amber was shaking. "Yes, Your Honor." "Get out of my courtroom." 6 weeks later, Amber gave birth to a baby boy. The court-ordered paternity test was administered immediately. David waited 3 days for the results. He was feeding Jennifer, the baby, not the memory, when Victoria called. "David, the results are in." His heart stopped. "And?" "You're not the father, not even close. The genetic markers don't match at all." David closed his eyes. Relief, guilt, and a strange sadness washed over him. "Then who?" "That's not our problem. But I filed the motion this morning. Amber owes you $127,000 in legal fees, and I've referred the case to the DA for potential fraud charges." "What'll happen to her?" "If the DA takes it, she could face charges for extortion and filing a false paternity claim. At minimum, her legal career is over. No firm will touch her." David looked down at his daughter, this tiny, perfect creature who was finally starting to gain weight, whose eyes were starting to focus. "Good," he said quietly. "Let her face consequences for once in her life." A year passed. The twins turned 1. Oliver was a serious, watchful baby with his mother's eyes. Jennifer, called Jenny by everyone except David, who always used her full name, was smaller but fierce, her personality already shining through. David sold the Craftsman house. Too many ghosts. He bought a smaller place in the suburbs, near Rachel and her family. He sold his partnership in Morrison and Associates. Marcus bought him out for a fair price. David didn't practice architecture anymore. He became a stay-at-home father. He was there for every feeding, every diaper change, every first. He was there in a way he hadn't been for Jennifer's pregnancy, and the guilt of that sat on his chest every single day. On the anniversary of Jennifer's death, he took the twins to the cemetery. She was buried in Riverview Cemetery, overlooking the city she'd loved. He sat on the grass between her headstone and the twins in their double stroller. "Hi, Jen," he said quietly. "I brought them. They're big now. Oliver just started cruising, holding onto furniture and walking. Jenny says Dada, which kills me every time. I know they don't remember you, they can't, but I tell them about you every single day." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't the man you deserved. I'm sorry I broke us. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I failed you in every possible way." He wiped his eyes. "But I promise you I won't fail them. I'm going to be the father they need. I'm going to tell them the truth about you, about how strong you were, how kind, how you never gave up. I'm going to make sure they know that the best thing about them came from you." Oliver reached out from the stroller, his tiny hand grabbing at the air. David took it. "I miss you," David whispered. "Every single day I miss you." 2 years after that, David was at a coffee shop in Northeast Portland with the twins, now 3 years old, wild and hilarious and exhausting. He was wiping syrup off Jenny's face when he heard a familiar voice. "David?" He looked up. His blood went cold. Amber Chen stood in front of him. She looked different, older, harder. She was holding the hand of a small boy, maybe 2 years old, her son. "Amber," David's voice was flat. I heard you were living out here. I wanted to—" She looked at the twins. "Are those—" "You need to leave." David stood, placing himself between Amber and his children. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I was a different person back then. I've changed. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to—" "I don't care." David's voice was ice. "You laughed when my wife died. You tried to steal my children. You don't get redemption from me. You get nothing." Amber's eyes filled with tears. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but that night at the hospital, I think about it every day. I was a monster, and I've paid for it. I lost everything, my career, my reputation. Ryan, the baby's father, he wants nothing to do with us. I'm alone." "Good," David said. "You should be." He gathered his children and walked out, leaving Amber standing alone in the coffee shop with her son. As he buckled the twins into their car seats, Jenny looked up at him. "Dada, who was that lady?" "No one, sweetheart. She was no one." David Morrison never saw Amber Chen again. She moved away from Portland a few months later. Some said she went to Phoenix, others said Texas. No one knew for sure, and no one cared. The twins grew up in a house filled with love, surrounded by Rachel's family, by David's sister who moved down from Seattle, by friends who became family. They had their mother's pictures everywhere. Jennifer laughing at the farmer's market, Jennifer on their wedding day, Jennifer's hand on her pregnant belly. On their 10th birthday, David told them the whole story. Not the sanitized version, the real version. He told them about his affair. He told them about Amber. He told them about his lies and his cowardice and how his choices led to their mother's death. "I was not a good man," he told them, his voice steady but his eyes wet. "I was selfish and weak, and I destroyed the best thing in my life. Your mother died because of a medical condition, but I made her life harder when it should have been easier. I will carry that guilt forever." Oliver, serious and wise beyond his years, took his hand. "But you're a good dad now." "I'm trying to be," David said. "Every single day, I'm trying to be." Jenny hugged him. "Mom would forgive. You. I think she'd want you to forgive yourself." But David Morrison never did forgive himself. And maybe that was right. Maybe some betrayals are too deep, some losses too profound for forgiveness. But he lived with it. He carried it. And he used it to be better, not perfect, but better, for the 2 miracles his wife had given him with her last breath. In the end, there were no winners in this story. Jennifer was gone. Amber was alone and ruined. David lived with guilt that never faded. But Oliver and Jenny Morrison, named for a mother they'd never know, grew up strong and kind and loved. They were Jennifer's legacy. They were the proof that even from the darkest tragedy, something good can grow. Not redemption, but maybe, just maybe, a reason to keep going.